My head was still spinning from Elaine's eruption in the office. She'd slammed those cupcakes down in front of me, seething with anger, and told me to choke on them. It was clear I'd messed up worse than I realized, and I couldn't get her words out of my head. When lunchtime rolled around, I couldn't even think about food. I just needed some air, so I blindly stumbled toward the stairwell, heading for my car where I could try to clear my thoughts. But as I descended the stairs, I caught sight of Elaine sitting on the bottom step, wiping at her eyes. She tried to hide that she was crying, but it was obvious. Her face was splotchy and her eyelashes were stuck together. I hesitated, not sure if I should just keep walking and leave her alone, but something pulled me to her. I sat down beside her without saying anything, reaching into the inner pocket of my jacket and pulling out a handkerchief. I held it out to her. "It's clean," I said when she hesitated, looking at the neatly folded cloth like it was a foreign object. "Clean your face up. If she sees you like this, she wins." She stared at the handkerchief, then at me, confused. "Why do you have a cloth handkerchief in your pocket?" she asked, her voice thick with tears. I shrugged, feeling a mix of embarrassment and nostalgia. "My grandfather always told me I should carry one because you never know when you'll get to be a hero and offer it to a crying woman." I thought he was shitting me, but every year he gave me a set of monogrammed handkerchiefs for Christmas. I carry them mainly because I miss him. He died last year. She blew her nose loudly into the handkerchief, catching me off guard. I blinked at her, a little stunned. "I'm going to want that back," I said, half joking, though I was serious, since he gave it to me. She held it out to me, snot and all. I grimaced, resisting the urge to recoil. "I can wash it," she suggested, her tone lightening just a little. "That might be best," I agreed, feeling a small smile tug at my lips despite the awkwardness. We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of everything still hanging between us. I bumped her shoulder gently with mine, trying to lighten the mood. "I'm sorry I ate your cupcakes." Elaine sighed. "I got in trouble for only buying 8, she said, holding up the handkerchief like it explained everything. Hence the snot. My stomach twisted with guilt. "You did?" She nodded, her expression pained. She continued, "I didn't want anyone else to get in trouble, so I told her I bought the wrong number and that it was my mistake. So," she stared at me with that disappointed look she does, worse than yelling, by the way, and told me to go away and be incompetent somewhere else. "All this over some cupcakes?" I asked, feeling the absurdity of the whole situation settle in. She nodded, and I could see the exhaustion on her face. I apologized again, genuinely sorry this time, and stood up, leaving her on the stairwell. I went back upstairs, grabbed the 4 cupcakes off my desk, the ones she'd thrown at me in frustration, and walked to the manager's office. I knocked on the door frame, and she looked up, clearly still irritated. Or perhaps that was her normal face. I had no idea, but I knew it wasn't welcoming. "A courier just brought these over," I said, holding up the box. Apparently, the bakery realized they made a mistake and wanted to make it right. They said the woman who ordered them clearly said 12, but they only gave her 8. There's a new guy still in training and he messed up. They also said you can come and get a free dozen in the future to make up for it. The pinched-faced manager stared at the box, and I watched a flash of guilt cross her face before she quickly masked it. She didn't say anything, but I could see the wheels turning in her mind. What Elaine and everyone else at this branch didn't know was that I'm not just some random guy who shows up occasionally. I actually own the company. Normally, I work out of the corporate office, but I like to visit our various locations, grab an empty cubicle, and blend in. It's the best way I've found to get a real sense of how things are going. I get to see how my employees interact, what problems they face, and how our management is performing when they don't know the boss is watching. Today had been an eye-opener, to say the least. There was definitely a staffing problem here, but it wasn't Elaine or the lack of cupcakes. It was Mrs. Aldridge, the so-called Ice Queen, whose cold, relentless demeanor was crushing morale and creating a toxic environment. I'd seen the fear and frustration in my employees' eyes, and it wasn't something I could ignore any longer. Her attitude was clearly affecting everyone, and Elaine's tears were just the latest example of how badly things had gotten out of hand. I realized then and there that if things were going to change, I would have to be the one to make it happen. Mrs. Aldridge would have to go, and it was up to me to ensure it. She might have gotten away with her icy management style for a while, but now that I'd seen the impact firsthand, I knew I couldn't let it continue. I had come in today just to get a feel for how this branch was running, but I was leaving with a much clearer picture of what needed to be fixed. And the first thing on my list would be finding a new manager. Someone who didn't make their employees cry over cupcakes. Elaine deserved better. They all did. And it was time for me to step up and make sure they got it.